No, this can't be happening. Our house is. This house and this land are ours, so we can do whatever we want with it, can't we? A daughter-in-law is just a maid in our house. As I gasp in shock, the mother-in-law is smirking at me. The moment Ethan passed away, my mother-in-law, Mary, had our house demolished without consent. She has always been like this. Treating me, her daughter-in-law, as if I were her servant, completely ignoring my opinions and feelings. Moreover, she misunderstands that I, who work from home, am unemployed, thinking that I am leeching off her son. It seems she believes it's okay to do anything to a leeching daughter-in-law. But I never imagined she would go this far. I have been patient until now, but I've reached my limit. Feeling the anger rising within me, I slowly begin to speak, planning my retaliation against the mother-in-law in front of me. My name is Stacy Brown, a 43-year-old working housewife. I usually work from home. I don't have any children, and it's been 12 years since Ethan and I started living together. You know we don't have much money since we've just got married, right? That's why we decided to take over the house where my parents used to live. My parents are going to live in a newly built house elsewhere, so we'll live in the old one. Ethan told me this at the beginning of our marriage, and I, who knew nothing at the time, was quite happy. I had been thinking about owning a home, but I was worried whether Ethan and I could afford one, so I was very grateful to my in-laws. Thank you, Mary. This really makes our married life much easier. It's nothing, don't worry about it. We'll live in a new house, and we don't have to deal with the old house, so it's actually a relief. Gratefully thanked by Mary in return, I naively thought I was blessed with a good mother-in-law. That's the circumstance, and the house Ethan and I live in is in the name of his parents. I have suggested changing the name several times, but Ethan finds it bothersome and it remains unchanged. But this was a mistake. This house is ours too, right? It would be a problem if you just do as you please. Who do you think you are? I complained to Mary about her repeated unannounced visits. Even though I work from home, it's impossible to work with her frequent visits. When I wrapped this in polite words, she got angry, claiming this is their house. Since then, Mary has always looked down on me and complained. By the way, my father-in-law just follows the mother-in-law's lead, completely being like heir. Even if I complain to Ethan, he says it's not his problem and doesn't listen properly. Mary's sarcasm and harassment have accelerated over the years, and recently, she started doing unexpected things. The other day, she took my clothes, which were obviously too small for me, saying they suited her better. In the end, she couldn't wear the clothes and returned them to me in a huff. Still, I wonder what will happen if the sarcasm and harassment get worse. Feeling a bit of unease, I continue to live days where I can't do anything. One night, I was enjoying a slightly luxurious dinner alone. It was my 43rd birthday, but Ethan was going to be late because of work, so I bought some ready-made food from the department store's food floor. Enjoying a little good wine, I savored my solitary dinner. Ethan has only celebrated my birthday for about 2 years since we got married. Now, it seems he has forgotten that today is my birthday. Well, it's fine, though. I don't wish for Ethan to celebrate anymore. Being able to eat what I like, how I like, this time is the best birthday present for me. Although it's a short time until Ethan returns, I fully enjoy my alone time. However, my enjoyable time was instantly ruined by the merciless sound of the doorbell, followed by the sound of stomping footsteps. Excuse me, Stacy? It seems Ethan's shoes are not there, hasn't he come back yet? The mother-in-law, who opens the living room door without prior notice, makes me almost sigh in resignation. Ah, again. This is just another day in my life. Because it happens almost every day, I don't bother complaining to the mother-in-law about it anymore. He will be late because of work today. I responded with a smile, but the mother-in-law showed a displeased face. Then, she saw the ready-made food from the department store's basement on the table and her eyes widened in surprise. What's this dinner, Stacy? Don't tell me you made this fancy dish? There's no way you could have, right? Oh. Ah, this is a side dish I bought. Actually, today is my birthday. I tried to continue, saying I was enjoying a nice dinner alone because of that, but the mother-in-law cut me off with a shrill voice. What? While your husband is out working, you're here enjoying a luxurious meal by yourself. What a terrible wife you are. I was working today too though. Working? You mean just playing around on the computer? Buying such nice ready-made dishes with my son's salary. I always work from home using my computer, but it seems to Mary as if I'm just playing games. I've explained this many times, but she never listens or tries to understand. Having such a luxury despite being unemployed, you really lack the awareness of being a wife. Then, to my surprise, she grabbed my half-eaten dinner and threw it into the trash. What are you doing? Someone unemployed like you should just eat plain bread. Moreover, she started rummaging through the fridge without permission. Please stop. Oh my, this cake is from a fancy store. It's too good for an unemployed person like you. I'll dispose of it properly later. Saying that, she took the cake box. She must have thrown away the ready-made dish because I had already eaten some of it. However, the cake was untouched, and judging by her smirking face, it seemed she planned to take it home and eat it herself. I was really upset by this and tried desperately to take back the cake box. That's my birthday cake. Please give it back. Oh, it's your birthday? It's not like it's anything special, especially at your age in your 40s. You're not a child, you don't need something like this. Then, she added insult to injury with more sarcasm. Really? It's because you don't have children that you've become such a lazy wife. I've told you many times to have children. Those words made me grimace. I wanted children too. But Ethan always said, it would be too much trouble if we had kids. Was everything he said before we got married a lie? I've explained many times to her that Ethan doesn't want them. But she seems to conveniently forget anything that doesn't suit her. She blames me for not having children every chance she gets. I'm going to clean up now, so please go home for today. It's dangerous to go back when it gets dark. Somehow managing to act concerned for her, I kicked her out of the house. My enjoyable alone time was ruined because of her. I usually don't say anything to Ethan, but I can't stand it this time. I used to think, take your time coming home. But now I'm irritated and thinking, come home quickly. As I wait for Ethan. When Ethan comes home, I immediately start to report what happened earlier. Ethan silently offers his bag, and as I take it as usual, I start speaking. Hey, Ethan. Your mom came to our house today. Then, Ethan grimaces deeply. You know, I'm really tired. Can we talk about complaints some other time? I usually back down here, but I couldn't hold back today. Hesitating a bit, I kept pressing Ethan for a response. When is later? I understand you're tired, but I really want you to listen to me now. You're so persistent. Can't you see I'm tired? Unlike you, I'm busy. He throws his suit at me in frustration. His attitude makes me snap back. I've been working at home too. Your job doesn't make much money, does it? You live off my earnings, so don't act so high and mighty. I'm shocked by his words. Does he really not know that I've been working and managing our finances? The living expenses he provides each month are minimal. It's impossible to live on that alone. However, Ethan seems to believe that the money he gives is enough for us to live comfortably. At the beginning of our marriage, I showed Ethan our household budget and explained how much we spend each month. He was surprised at the cost, saying, "It costs more than I expected." But he seems to have completely forgotten that conversation. Forgetting inconvenient truths must run in his family. Ethan, my earnings are. Realizing the misunderstanding, I hurriedly try to explain. However, Ethan cuts me off, saying, I don't want to hear anymore. My issues are more important than your trivial stories. Look at this. He hands me his health checkup results from the company, conducted about 2 months ago. Most of the indicators show poor results. The results are terrible. It must be because of the food you make. You haven't been putting weird stuff in it, have you? What? I would never do such a thing. Then, the meals you make must be unbalanced. Be more careful from now on. Ethan says this arrogantly, but he has hardly eaten my cooking in the last few years. For breakfast, he eats snacks or instant ramen noodles, lunches out, and only occasionally eats my dinner. When he does, he leaves the vegetables and only eats what he likes. When he eats out, he usually comes back drunk. I've told him numerous times that such a diet would eventually ruin his health, but he never listened. Instead, he found my advice annoying, saying, "You're so noisy." He blames me, even though it's clearly his own fault. I almost yell out of irritation, but I know that getting angry now would only make things worse. You need to get a re-examination. It says so here, doesn't it? Please get re-examined as soon as possible. I try to suppress my irritation and urge Ethan to get re-examined. However, Ethan frowns and retorts, "No, that's troublesome. You just need to be more careful, that's all." With that, he leaves for the bath, leaving me standing there, dumbfounded. Ethan, who wouldn't even celebrate my birthday, is the man I chose to marry. Despite everything, I worry about him. Why can't he understand my feelings? Feeling empty, I became even more cautious with the meals I prepared from that day on. Despite my efforts, Ethan passed away about a year later. I had repeatedly urged him to get re-examined. However, he never went for the re-examination and just ignored it. I don't have time for troublesome things like re-examinations. Yet, when he was home on weekends, he would just lie around. He had plenty of opportunities to get re-examined. When he started saying, "I feel weird," his condition rapidly worsened. By the time he was taken to the hospital, it was too late. There was nothing to be done, and soon after Ethan passed away. "It's your fault my son ended up like this. Give my son back." Mary blamed me relentlessly for his death. The father-in-law was as inconsequential as ever, but his gaze was filled with resentment towards me. The father-in-law and mother-in-law probably think the same way. I told them many times. Ethan's health checkup results were bad, and I repeatedly asked him to get re-examined. But he wouldn't listen to me. I desperately tried to clear the misunderstanding, but his mother wouldn't believe a word I said. "It's your fault. I will resent you for the rest of my life." After Ethan's passing, we held his funeral, but his parents didn't help with anything. "It's your responsibility, Stacy. You handle everything." So, I was left to take care of all the funeral arrangements and the subsequent procedures all by myself. It was overwhelming, but his parents turned a blind eye. Ethan often said he hated trouble, which I guess he inherited from his parents. His parents always dumped their problems on me. This time, they claimed it was my responsibility and left me to deal with everything. They acted as if it was natural and never once showed gratitude. I'm so tired. After the funeral and all the procedures were finally over, I decided to take a day off and rest. Stumbling, I crawled into bed. When I woke up, I heard the mother-in-law's voice. "Yes, that'll be fine. Thank you very much." Wondering what it was, I got up from the bed. Hearing the mother-in-law's voice outside the bedroom, I sighed, realizing she had let herself in again. After fixing myself up, I went to see her and found her in the entrance, suddenly thrusting something into my hands. "Mother, did someone come by?" "No, no one was here." "More importantly, Stacy, you must be tired after all that's happened. Here, take this ticket and take it easy for a while." Huh? Looking at what she handed me, I realized it was a ticket to the nearest station to my hometown. Well. Come on, hurry up and get ready. This plane leaves tomorrow. I've included a return ticket as well. Take about a week to relax." Prompted by her, I began preparing for the sudden trip back home. What's going on? It was unbelievable for her to not make a single snide remark at me. Maybe she feels bad for everything. Perhaps, in her own way, she feels guilty about blaming me for Ethan's death and dumping all the procedures on me. And indeed, I was exhausted. I needed time to unwind and refresh at my parents' house. At that moment, I was too tired to notice if she was plotting something. Normally, I would have been suspicious of her actions. But this time, I let my guard down and went back home without suspicion. My brother and his wife live there, but when I contacted them, they said, "Come anytime." Gratefully accepting their invitation, I took the chance to relax at my parents' house. I met up with old friends and played with my nieces and nephews, fully recovering from my fatigue. Mary does something nice once in a while. On the day of my return, I boarded the train in high spirits. I even bought souvenirs for her, feeling lighter in both heart and body as I returned home. However, what greeted me was the sight of our house, mercilessly demolished. No, this can't be happening. Our house is. This house and this land are ours, so we can do whatever we want with it, can't we? A daughter-in-law is just a maid in our house, Mary gloated, grinning from ear to ear. Indeed, since the house and land were still under his parents' names, they could do whatever they wanted with their property. But I never imagined they would go this far. Could it be that the person she was speaking to at the entrance that day was from a demolition company? While dumping the funeral and all other procedures on me, she must have been planning to demolish this house all along. Otherwise, there's no way the house could have been demolished so quickly. Mary completely looks down on me, thinking anything she does to me will be forgiven because I've never outright opposed her, considering she's my husband's mother. This attitude must have emboldened her, but I won't let her have her way any longer. "Oh, what's wrong, Stacy? Are you crying because you're shocked?" Misinterpreting my bowed head as crying, Mary tries to peer into my face. However, I slowly raise my face to meet hers and show her a broad smile. "Huh? Why are you smiling? Has the shock made you lose your mind?" Given she mentions the shock, she must be aware that she has done something unthinkable. Finding this fact amusing, I let out a chuckle. Eventually, I couldn't hold it in anymore and burst into loud laughter. "Have you really gone mad?" "No, I'm perfectly sane." "Oh, about the offer you just made, about me being a maid in our house from now on, was it?" I must decline. Confused, yet Mary responds, "Yes, that's right. With your husband gone and your house demolished, you have nowhere to go, right? I believe your brother's family is living in your parents' house. It would be quite embarrassing to return at your age, so we'll take care of you. As a maid, of course." Regaining her usual demeanor, the mother-in-law smirks unpleasantly. To this, I respond with laughter. "A maid? What are you talking about? I'm single, you know?" "Huh?" Hearing her confused voice, I almost laugh again. Actually, I divorced Ethan a month before he passed away. Yes, Ethan and I were already strangers to each other. But after filing for divorce, his condition suddenly worsened. Despite the divorce, since we were once in love and married, I couldn't just abandon him. That's why I decided to take care of him till the end. With everything happening so quickly, I lost the chance to inform his parents. However, I never imagined such a perfect opportunity would arise. So, I have no obligation to live with you guys. After all, we're strangers. The mother-in-law intended to drive me out of my home and take me in, to treat me as a real maid. She's been complaining about her physical limitations due to aging but insists on not wanting to live in a nursing home. She intended to have me take care of her until she passed away. You might think, would someone really demolish a house for such a reason? But Mary is the type of person who wouldn't hesitate to do such extreme acts. Once, she broke a necklace my deceased mother gave me right in front of me. Such a beautiful necklace, let me see. She snatched it from my hands, claimed her hand slipped, and broke the delicate chain. As I cried over the broken necklace, she said, "I'm sorry, it wasn't on purpose. But clinging to such a memento will only make your mother in heaven disappointed." At that moment, I realized I could never understand Mary. Someone capable of such deeds wouldn't surprise me by demolishing a house. Also, she probably wanted to enjoy seeing me distraught. Mary finds joy in tormenting me. In a way, she's a pitiful person with no other joys in life. Despite revealing this shocking truth, Mary seemed unwilling to give up. I had no idea you two had divorced. Did you pressure my critically ill son into divorce? How could you do something so heartless? I'll demand compensation. Unless you want to comply with my demands. There was a compelling reason for the divorce. The mother-in-law's eyes widened with anger as she pressed closer. A compelling reason for divorce, you say? It must be quite the story. If you can, try telling me. Spitting with rage, the mother-in-law causes me to frown and step back a bit. Then, I reveal another fact to her. Ethan, your son, was having an affair. What? An affair? This seemed too unexpected for her, as her body slightly trembled. Ethan had been coming home late for several years, claiming he was busy with work, but that was a complete lie. He was meeting his mistress, staying out late into the night. My suspicion of his infidelity began when his late nights became a 3-day streak. It's amazing how sharp a woman's intuition can be. Just a slight change in behavior or a different attitude, and I could tell he was hiding something. The decisive evidence was when he left his smartphone, usually taken to the bathroom, on the living room table, and I saw a message from his mistress. The message read, "Yesterday was fun, let's go to that hotel again." The moment I saw that message, I knew for sure he was cheating. I had been aware of Ethan's infidelity for a while, and accepting this fact wasn't much of a shock. By this point, my love for Ethan had nearly vanished. There's no need for me to be shocked by the actions of someone I no longer loved. However, we were still legally married. He had to atone for betraying his wife. My actions thereafter were swift. I took money from my savings, hired a detective agency to gather solid evidence of his affair, and then, with that evidence, I approached a lawyer to file for divorce. The divorce was finalized a month before Ethan passed away. I was about to pack up and leave when Ethan suddenly collapsed. By then, there was no love or affection left between us, turning our relationship to that of mere strangers. But I couldn't just leave someone suffering right before my eyes. I'm not that cruel. Ethan begged me with tears. Please, it's my last request. So, I ended up taking care of him until the end. However, my care was minimal at best. I didn't offer words of comfort, merely fulfilling my duties in a business-like manner. Ethan tried to cling to me out of fear as the disease took over his body, but I ignored him and kept my distance emotionally. Even after Ethan's death, I have no intention of forgiving his infidelity. I demanded compensation from both his mistress and him. The mistress paid the full amount, but Ethan, in his condition, wasn't in a place to pay any compensation. However, I had demanded compensation from Ethan, but since he passed away, I can't collect from him anymore. So, I've decided to ask you, his family, to pay instead. Please make sure the payment is taken care of. What? Why should we have to pay? At the mention of compensation, the mother-in-law's eyes bulged with rage. She seemed more shocked by this than by the fact that her son had an affair. She adored her only son, but it seems she loves herself more. I sighed in exasperation and explained. If the responsible party passes away, their family can be held liable. It's understandable you're not aware of this. However, this has been confirmed by my lawyer. Lawyer? A jobless person like you can't afford a lawyer. Don't tell me you've been taking money from Ethan's savings. You thief! Give back my son's money. The outrageous accusation nearly made me dizzy. Mary had always been unreasonable, but she's gotten worse over the years. But if I cave now, it'll only lead to more trouble later. After yet another sigh, I slowly began to speak, firmly standing my ground. I'm sorry to say, I earn more than Ethan did. What nonsense. Maybe you've really lost your mind. She snorted in disbelief. I had to restrain myself from retorting that she was the one who had lost her mind. Digging through my bag, I pulled out a document and handed it to her. This is a payment statement from one of my clients. I have contracts with several companies, so my annual income is much higher than this. The mother-in-law looked at the document, then at me, her eyes nearly popping out as she glanced back and forth between the paper and my face. She seemed unable to believe the amount written on the document. Despite numerous explanations, it appears she never seriously remembered anything about my job. I'm a freelance programmer, and I make a good living. After graduating from college, I joined a fairly large company. I gained experience there while building a network and eventually shifted to freelancing. Before we got married, Ethan said, I want you to focus on this house, so quit your job. We'll probably have children eventually. However, his earnings alone weren't enough for a comfortable life, so I kept working. Now, I'm genuinely grateful I didn't follow Ethan's suggestion back then. Until now, I had to cover Ethan's share of the expenses, but living on my own means, I can spend more freely and enjoy a bit more luxury. It was fortunate that I had kept the payment statement. Before being rushed back to my parents' house by the mother-in-law, I noticed the payment statement from a client in the mailbox and thought it risky to leave it, so I tucked it into my bag. Never did I imagine that upon my return, not only would the security be compromised, but the house itself would be gone. No, that can't be. You're supposed to be unemployed. She still refused to accept the truth, so I spared no effort in confronting her with the facts. The demolition of the house was unexpected, but it's not an issue. I had already signed a lease for an apartment right after divorcing Ethan. I was planning to let go of this house anyway, so it saved me the trouble. What concerned me was what happened to my belongings, but surely she wouldn't have thrown everything away. Mary, unwilling to admit defeat, pointed a trembling finger at me. It's because you didn't have children soon enough that my son ended up like this. Really? You're still blaming me? If there had been children, my son would have been more health conscious and lived longer. His death is because of your infertility. You're responsible for compensating. Her selfish reasoning made me burst into laughter. Then, I selected a particular image on my smartphone and showed it to her. This is the exchange between your son and his mistress. Let me read Ethan's message to you. Turns out I'm infertile, hee hee. My wife kept nagging, so I went for a checkup, and the doctor told me so. So, I can cheat all I want. The infertile one was your son, not me. Before marrying, I had undergone a bridal check and was diagnosed with no issues. Unlike Ethan, who lived an unhealthy life, I was perfectly healthy and could have gotten pregnant any time. Do you understand now? The issue wasn't with me, but with your son. That can't be. It's a lie. Believe it or not, it doesn't matter to me. You'll be hearing from my lawyer soon. You may not trust my words, but you'll believe a lawyer's, right? With that, I gave the mother-in-law a smile. This smile was my way of getting back at her for all she had done to me. It conveyed, I won't let you have your way anymore. You're going to take responsibility. Whether she understood my message or not, she turned pale and collapsed to the ground, powerless. After leaving her there, I headed to my new place. I already had the keys and all necessary furniture, so I wouldn't have trouble starting my new life. A few days later, later, my lawyer contacted Ethan's parents. Initially, they refused the lawyer's demands, saying it was impossible. But when faced with the prospect of a lawsuit, they reluctantly agreed. As a result, I received compensation from Ethan's mistress and his parents. They tried to sell the land where our house once stood, but due to its inconvenient location, they've struggled to find a buyer. Lowering the price might attract some interest, but after paying me the compensation, they've significantly drained their savings and can't afford to lower it. The father-in-law, already retired, had to return to work through a senior job placement service due to financial difficulties, but the earnings are meager and barely help with living expenses. With no work experience, Mary struggles to find employment. Given her selfish nature, it's unlikely she'd last long anywhere. Struggling financially, the mother-in-law resorts to gathering water from a public park and foraging for edible plants to stave off hunger, I heard. Eating roadside plants based on amateur judgment is risky. She might accidentally consume something poisonous someday. But now, since those two are practically strangers to me, what happens to them, even if they poison themselves, is none of my concern. If only my in-laws had been kind to me. If only they had supported me when Ethan passed away. I occasionally entertain such what-ifs, but reality is far from it. Whatever happens to them from now on is the result of their own actions. Their past behavior has led them to their present situation, so there's no need for my sympathy. Incidentally, the mother-in-law had moved my belongings to a rental storage unit. I suspected she might have taken anything of value, but perhaps she realized she couldn't afford to play tricks on a woman who could hire a lawyer. I managed to recover all my belongings safely. After the compensation payment, the mother-in-law contacted me just once, begging for help, but I didn't respond at all and proceeded with canceling my smartphone plan. Only my family, work colleagues, and close friends know my new number. My new home is in a completely different location from where I used to live, making it impossible for my elderly in-laws to find me. Just in case, I chose a place with top-notch security. Even if Mary manages to find me, security will quickly respond. I pray that doesn't happen, as it would only add to my troubles. Currently, my life is going very well. Freed from caring for Ethan and enduring the mother-in-law's snide remarks and harassment, I now live a stress-free life. The only challenge, if any, is being busy with work. Having more time to myself led me to take on more work, perhaps a bit too much, which makes me smile wryly. Thanks to this, I've gained considerable recognition at work and anticipate busy days ahead. Even with my work-filled days, I find time to meet with close friends on weekends, allowing for ample refreshment. At this age, many of my friends are also free from parenting duties, making it easier to find time to sit and chat. After marrying Ethan, getting older seemed to bring nothing but unpleasantness. I feared that aging would only make me more miserable, but now, nothing scares me anymore. I am free, capable of going anywhere I wish. I'm sure I'll live each day with a smile, aiming to keep smiling until my last moment. Living such a life is my goal now.